The Minister for Women, Julie Anne Genter, says that National's legislation was deliberately designed to put barriers in the way of workers who want to make a pay equity claim. The new Minister joins us now. Good morning.
Ata Maria.
Now, if I can break this into three bits. Firstly, talk about what National you believe was doing wrong, then what you want to do, and then perhaps some broader parts of your key plan to pay women more. So firstly, National's plan, its legislation, why was it flawed in your view?
Well, there was a tripartite group. So business, unions, government sat down together, had a joint working group on pay equity principles. And it's true that the Equal Pay Act, needs to be modernized. And so we were expecting a bill that would implement those principles that had been agreed. And the problem with the bill brought forward by National is that it didn't adhere to those agreed principles, and it introduced a few key barriers that actually would have made it impossible for Christine Bartlett to successfully take the pay equity case, the Terra Nova case, that was a landmark settlement. That means 55,000 underpaid women will be paid more. So one of the problems is the way that they address merit. The other is the hierarchy of comparators. If you just look into the legislation, it's clear that it was setting up barriers for that type of case to be taken in the future. And it would have really been a huge setback for the 8 cases that have been taken by other sectors like mental health, social workers, part-time teachers.
Okay, so what is it that you are going to do as new minister to fix this? What are you going to do differently?
We already have the agreed principles from the joint working group, and I don't think it will be too difficult to go back, take those barriers out of the bill, replace them with something that truly reflects those agreed principles and is going to make it easier for women to have a process and a pathway to equal pay. And ultimately, I think what this comes down to is what kind of society do we want to live in? I think most New Zealanders agree if people are out there working, and it's some of the most vulnerable people in our country, particularly Maori and Pacific women, have been systematically discriminated against, we need to make it easier for them to have a pathway to fair pay.
You mentioned Maori and Pacific. I think the pay gap there is something around 25%, so it's a big difference there, isn't it? What is it? That against, 10 to 13%, roughly?
Yep, the average is... the official measure is 9%. Some people say that's not quite accurate. It might be higher than that. But yes, with Māori and Pacific women, it's over 20%. It's
okay.
22
Let's
and
quickly
25.
go through some of the key points that you had, because you drew up a whole plan for this, a plan to pay women more. So introduce pay transparency by requiring employers to collect data on what they pay men and women. Will that happen?
I think that's something that we need to build a case for and get consensus with our government partners.
Okay,
it's true that when we had a members' bill before the House, all 3 parties voted for it. But I think, being in government, there's an extra opportunity and responsibility to do the work in consultation.
So that's a maybe? You hope to?
I'll be working on it. Be working on it. I've got to get it across the line, both I think with the private sector and business and with the other government partners. Okay.
Double the funding for the Ministry for Women to get a better deal for women. That was 0.5 on your key points in your plan. Are you going to double the funding for the Ministry of Women?
We'll have to ask the Minister of Finance that, but I'll certainly be making a budget bid. And with my responsibilities...
You'll be making a budget bid to double the funding for the
We'll be making
ministry?
a budget bid to increase the funding, but there already is additional responsibility that will be delegated to me, particularly to achieve this goal around achieving or closing the gender pay gap in the public sector. And so whether that's done entirely, at the moment, the Ministry for Women hasn't had legislative responsibilities. So there'll be responsibilities from other government departments delegated to me as Minister for Women to do that work.
Okay. The final point on your list of 7 things that were important to get women more pay was to ensure the Minister for Women sits in Cabinet. Now, that hasn't happened, has it?
No, and, it was about...
Cabinet,
so the Green Party has consistently championed these issues, and I think you can see from our caucus, having had specific policies to encourage female leadership has been very successful. So we now have 75% of our caucus are women, and I think we're bringing something really important to Parliament by having very talented, high-quality women. And so it was important for the Green Party to continue leading on women's issues. And given that we weren't going to be in cabinet, we had to make a trade-off. Is it more important that the Green Party is able to hold Minister for Women and to make progress, or is it more important that it's in cabinet? We made the choice. We still wanted the portfolio, and I don't for one moment believe that the Prime Minister is going to let women's issues be less of a priority because it's sitting outside cabinet.
Thanks very much for your time. Do appreciate it. That's the new Minister for Women, Julie Anne Genter. 4 minutes to 8.
Well, it's often